Just trying to here to explain the impact of air pollution in Beijing and how it affects the biodiversity in China, well, in both the north and the south provinces. Let's start with some background information of what the flora and fauna is like in Beijing. So Beijing has a very wide variety of plants. The flora in Beijing includes 169 families, around 900 genera, and 2,206 species. Most plants are preserved in the Beijing Botanic Garden, around located in the Wangjing um, district. Um, well, famous plants you would find in the urban areas of Beijing would be the Peking willow ash, um, Paulownia, pine tree, silk tree, and sycamore. Well, unlike its flora, the animals have been really forced out to move out of the city because of construction and human impact. So before the construction, as I believe environmentalists have recorded, there were deers, squirrels, rabbits, imperial dogs, and a very small amount of Dongbei tigers that lived in Beijing. Now, because of the crowded city, only some squirrels and rabbits are found in the spring. So therefore, I would be mainly talking about the bird population in Beijing, and Beijing has a really wide variety of birds. Going through the city, especially during the spring and fall, which are times of migration. Let's move on to birds. So this is the Peking willow. The tree is the Peking willow. And then there are two pictures of birds, and I'll explain where I found the pictures. I found the pictures on a site called by the Beijing um, observation bird observation organization. So they have a few locations. One in the Yeyahu, which is really close to my house. In spring and fall seasons, they would gather and they would observe birds crossing through, like the species, the type. They would record the birds that go in because I mean lakes are really popular for birds to rest and to mate. So they would record like what species down there, and there will be like an expert explaining to participants who are like in the observation process. So as we know, there are around 9,000 species of birds living on our planet right now. As for Beijing, there are 350 kinds of birds found right here. Only 20% of the birds are resident birds, and for the 80% they're all migration birds. 49% of all birds are passing migration, so they pass through Beijing and they would go to probably the Dongbei province mostly, to mate, um, in the summer. And so basically 25% are summer migrations. 25% of all birds, around I would say 23.5% of birds would go to Dongbei. It's a really popular province of migration, and and 6% would go to the south for winter migration. So what is a problem that I'm trying to address is that it's air pollution. So during the 2020, 2010 of Beijing, the PM10 concentration has been like above the WHO recommended PM10 limit. Thus, Beijing is not a safe city to live in. Well, the situation is improving since the government is kind of controlling the carload and the bacterial production. However, people are not aware of the potential danger. People smoke everywhere, and they dispose trash without noticing that this is a huge issue. So let's talk about how air pollution kind of affect birds. So air pollution turns out to be fatal for birds as it kills a lot of birds. So and there are two elements in air pollutions that really causes birds to die. The first one is carbon monoxide. It's really um, it's basically in all kind of air pollution. Smoke. It's created through burning gasoline, coal, oil, all that. Even they create that even in cooking. Um, what it does to birds is that it really affects the nervous system of birds. And so it's I there are a lot of scientific vocabulary in the article, and as I've summarized, it really affects the respiratory function of birds as it would affect their breathing and things. Another really important and fatal element included in air pollution is sulfur dioxide. It's the output of burning fossil fuel, zinc, and iron. It also causes the immune system of birds to malfunction. So, which means that if birds inhale a certain amount of sulfur dioxide, they will be vulnerable to sickness or physical sores. So, if they live in a city like Beijing with huge air pollution, um, their immune system would malfunction, and a single wound might become fatal, as the toxic and sulfur would stunt like the healing of birds. Like scars will not recover, and they might just die because of temperature. So, how does the death of birds really affect biodiversity? So, the consequence of air pollution is huge. It affects the migration routes of birds, which would significantly decrease their mating time, and they would have to spend more time on like the spring and fall migrations. Since they have to, they can't go through Beijing, so they have to take another route, which is going to go over Beijing. That would take longer on their way. Um, Birds are one of the main consumers of rat and squirrels. Um, Without birds, rats and squirrels would prosper, therefore causing the food pyramid to change. It's kind of like, especially in the Dongmei province, it's really cold in the winter, and uh, in the summer, what happened is birds would arrive in that area. They would consume rats and squirrels to mate, which really kind of limits the population of rats and squirrels to not make them just prosper and be everywhere. However, because of Beijing being such a polluted city, more and more birds have died, and chose to migrate to other places. So they won't go to Dongbei province to mate anymore. And what that would cause is that the population of rats and squirrels would just boost, um, which would have a huge impact on the diet of level 1 and level 2 consumers in the Dame province, such as level 1, we can say, such as like dogs, hyenas, and foxes. Those are all really animals that would consume rats and squirrels, and their diet would change because of that. Well, one impact that the death of birds have on the provinces would be like especially on tigers. So Dongmei tigers are already endangered species, as Dongmei tigers actually consume a lot of birds, because um, they have the ability to climb trees. Climb small trees, and that's where birds live and put nests on. So without the existence of birds, they would have to they would have to change their diet. They would have to consume other things, and yeah, so the diet would change for all classes of animals, and especially in Dome province, I don't know, it has a huge impact, and I have came up with solutions to help with the situation. So I've came up with three significant solutions to the problem. The first one is limiting waste. So factories burning fuel and coal should alternate the source of energy with like solar energy, wind energy, and water energy, like recyclable energy sources. As far as I know, places like Changping, the Changping district, Shunyi district, and even places in urban areas, they have kind of replaced um, fuel as like a common source. Like they don't really use electricity anymore. They generate electricity through solar energy. I know in the Hutongs, as maybe you don't know, it's like a really popular. It's located in a central city. Those one floor houses. Um, government promoted people to use solar energy. They gave them solar panels to generate electricity. Of course, Changping, as like it's called like it's really futuristic. People like government tries out the new energy sources in that district, and they have definitely used a lot of wind energy there. The second solution I've came up with is the construction of shelters. Well, so basically that kind of prevents birds from staying in the city. They open parks and lakes in rural areas should be open for birds to stay. well, one important factor here is that limiting human activities is huge because birds are really shy and they are scared of humans. So birds would hopefully in the rural areas where there's less pollution, they would mate safely, and they can hopefully cross over there. Just avoid the city of Beijing. And the third one would be factorial changes, and that's like the most practical way I would consider. So factors should be fully in use during times not round migrations, of course, like just like normal. However, the outputs of weights, like especially during the migration season, should be limited by the government, and like the government should set like stricter like limitations to the input of coal and fuel in order to preserve the environment. Because I mean, air pollution is not only for birds; it also applies to humans. So, well, the government actually enforced this law during the I-20 period, I-20 diplomatic meet, where a lot of countries came. So factories were like they were limited, and cars were limited, and like to minimize like air pollution. So those are my three solutions, and yeah, that's a problem. So air pollution really causes birds to die, and the biodiversity in the Guangzhou province, Dongbei province are all affected because of that.